But wonderful. All right, welcome everyone to our Food Smarts Waste Reduction Workshop. This is workshop number 2 of 3 workshop series. And I am your host today, Anna. I'm joined by my intern today, Angela. And as I mentioned before, this is a full hour. So please make yourself comfortable and we're gonna have a great time. So before I begin, I do like to do a tech check. So can everyone hear me and see my video and my slides? You should see a welcome and tech check sign or slide. Please type in the chat, maybe give me a thumbs up. Actually need to make sure I can see you all, but can everyone hear me? Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, thank you, Gary. All right, we'll move on. And or have the option to do so, but totally optional. I do like to see everyone's face. All right, so it's important to me that everyone feels respected here and knows what to expect, so we can all have an enjoyable learning experience and have a good time together. So here are just some group norms. If you were in the workshop last community day, very similar. So we'll be practicing one mic, that is one person speaks at a time so we can all hear each other. Please raise your hand if you want to speak up. If anyone is on their phone, that is dial 9. Oh, someone raised their hand. Or is that just like a high five? Someone have a question, Diane? Or maybe you were just playing around?
No, she said no. She shook her head.
Oh, okay, thank you, thank you. I'm not able to see everyone's video, so I appreciate the help. Share the airtime. So this workshop is designed to be very interactive. I'm not lecturing for an hour. We'll be asking questions and there'll be plenty of opportunity to share stories. So we do have just an hour together and a lot of content to cover. So please be mindful of how much airtime you're using up. Good rule of thumb is about 2 minutes. Be mindful of your mic. I think we're all aware that, you know, it's Zoom and your mic can pick up a lot of background noise. So please keep your background noise at a minimum. Mute your mic if there's something happening in your home that's making noise. Please mute and unmute if you want to speak up. And utilize the chat box, which some of you are already doing, so that's great. If you're not comfortable speaking up, this is a great option to ask questions or comment throughout the workshop. And respect and confidentiality, of course, and any others, if you think of any, please let me know in the chat box. Otherwise, we will move on. All right, I think everyone is familiar with Zoom functions, but here are just some basic functions to be aware of to engage in today's workshop. So again, the mute button, maybe starting your video if you want to, and using the chat box. And it looks a little differently depending on if you're on your phone or a tablet, your computer, or on the phone. But it looks like everyone is joining through the app, which is great. All right, so here's an overview of our workshop series. So as I mentioned, this is a 3 workshop series. So hopefully we'll be here again for the next community day, but this is workshop 2 and we're talking all about food safety. And my intern, Angela, will be doing a fun recipe demonstration. And for every workshop you attend, you earn additional $6 what we call Veggie RX vouchers. And I'll talk about those near the end of today's workshop. So here is today's agenda. We'll do some introductions and then we'll go right into the topics. So we're going to talk about food storage and then a little bit about food safety. And then we'll end with Angela's cooking demonstration. She has a nice treat for us today. And then we'll end with some closing remarks. I'll talk a little bit about those vouchers and remaining time for any questions that you may have, but you're welcome to ask questions throughout the workshop. Oops, skipped myself. All right, well, hello everyone. My name is Anna. I've been teaching with or I've been featured at Travandi's Community Days for a while. So for those of you who do not know me, I am a registered dietitian, and I joined Leah's Pantry back in December of 2017. So close to 4 years now. And I come from a family of 4. There's a picture of me and my mom, dad, and older brother. And I'm what people call ABC, so American born Chinese. And I think this picture is a really good illustration of that. You can see there's like a little image of our Buddha's sanctuary, and then there's also like an American flag. So I grew up kind of with 2 different cultures in my home. I was raised in San Francisco. I think I may have mentioned already. And I studied clinical nutrition at UC Davis, and I earned my Master of Science in dietetics at the University of Rhode Island. And a few fun facts about me: I love making new friends, and I love helping others make peace with food and also fight food waste. And outside of work, I love to bike, explore the outdoors, and bake when I have the chance, but it takes up a lot of dishes, so I don't do it, very often, but only on special occasions. All right, and I'll let Angela introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Angela, and I am a dietetic intern. So I'm shadowing Anna, and hopefully in the future, near future, I will also become a registered dietitian. Also currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Human Nutrition. I live in San Francisco. I have 3 kids and a partner here, lovely home here in Bernal Heights. And when there is some free time, I like to relax with crafting or pottery and sewing hobbies. But my mind is always about food. So you can see here, I made little s'mores or toast or a strawberry with my pottery. And my favorite fruit is avocado. It is so versatile, and I'm looking forward to doing the cooking demo today, which I actually include an avocado that was over ripening on my counter.
Ooh, perfect, Angela. You know what? I didn't even notice. I've seen the slides so many times. I didn't notice it's all your crafts are about food. You're in the perfect profession. Is that a pig? I guess I would call that a food
It is
too.
a little piggy.
It's a little piggy. It's so
the
cute.
Piggy bowl to hold food
I love it.
Okay.
All right. Great. Well, thank you so much, Angela. All right, so we have a pretty big group, so I don't think we have time to have everyone unmute themselves and give formal introductions. So I'll ask if those who feel comfortable, please share in the chat box. And if you do really want to share, maybe we can have a few people raise their hand and unmute themselves to introduce themselves. So for our introduction, please share your preferred name, if it doesn't show up already on Zoom. And what is one thing you learned from the last workshop? So the last workshop was taught by my colleague, Kevin, Chef Kevin. If you weren't, there for that workshop, maybe you can share one way you reduce food waste. So for me, one way I reduce food waste is I save vegetable scraps, and I either compost them or save them in a little freezer bag. I like to save things like onion skins and garlic skins, tops of sweet onions, maybe tops of carrots or aromatic vegetables like fennel. And I like to save those to make a vegetable stock. So great, I already see some people chatting away. So Yolanda, reduce food waste by use of broccoli stems and not throw away. Wonderful, Yolanda. Hopefully you were there for last month's workshop, but that's exactly what Kevin demonstrated in his broccoli stem salad. All right, Tina says she eats all of the broccoli now, the crown and hopefully the stem too. Wonderful, Tina, thank you. Anyone else want to share one simple way you reduce food waste at home, either from something something inspired by last month's workshop, or just something you have been starting to do, or maybe have been doing a few years, maybe a couple weeks or months? Diane, thank you. Let's see, have a soup bag in the freezer. Oh, great. That's exactly what I do as well. And oh wait, you know what? I'm interpreting that wrong. Have a soup bag in the freezer, and when filled, boil it and make soup, not just veggies. Oh, is it to kind of similar to what I was talking about, like making a vegetable stock? I think that's what you mean, but maybe.
We can't hear you, Diane.
Could you repeat that, Diane? Oh, she sounds a little muffled. Is anyone able to hear her? Maybe it's just me.
I'm not able to hear her, but I do see her mouth moving.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Diane, we're not able to hear you very clearly, but if you can maybe type in the chat box, we can hear you, or we can understand what you're saying. Sorry about that. All right, anyone else? That's okay. I won't pressure you all to share, but hopefully maybe you'll walk away with today's workshop inspired to try something new. Okay, we'll move on. So we'll start with the first activity, and this is called Where Does It Go? So in this first activity, we're going to cover some food storage basics, and this may seem simple to you, but I think it's really important for us to go over, and maybe you'll learn something new. A few food storage mistakes can result to, waste of food and also money, and can also lead us to getting sick, in some cases, serious illness. So we hope you can walk away with some ways to store your food a bit more properly, to waste less and keep a few more bucks in your wallet and keep you in good health. We all want that, right? Oh, Gary, thank you for sharing. Refrigerate bread and use older food in the back of the fridge first. Oh, great tip. Yeah. Every time I visit my parents, I always find something kind of gross in the back of their fridge, because they kind of stuff a lot of things in their fridge, so they just forget about what's in the back of their fridge. So that's a great way, kind of rotate foods and use what's older first. There's a saying in food service management. Wait, I've kind of forgot. Is it first in, first out? Okay, yes. Thank you. I was like, that was in my mind. I was like, is that right? I think it is. Yeah, first in, first out. That's just what we use to refer to rotating older foods in the front. That way we don't forget about the older foods and preventing food spoilage. All right, great. Thank you, Gary. So let's pretend we're in my kitchen and I have a few foods that I stored away, but I need your help on if it's accurately or properly stored away. So let's say I have a bottle of olive oil and I put it on my countertop. Is this a proper way to store my olive oil?
Possible.
Yes or no? And if no, where would you put it instead? Yolanda says yes. Oh, Valerie shared something. I cooked some food that was near its expiration date and saved it. Way to go, Valerie. You're a food waste warrior. Excellent. I love to hear that. All right. So Yolanda says yes. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts about my olive oil, putting it out on the countertop? No sunlight spoils oil. Very good, Jennifer. So I'll talk a little bit about that later, but you're definitely right. Putting things like olive oil exposed to sunlight. So usually on the countertop, it's exposed to some sort of natural light. And that can definitely spoil your olive oil, or, affect the quality. Diane says, but olive oil comes in a green bottle. That's very true, Diane. Some olive oils do come in a green bottle, and that can help, shade the oil, but it can still affect the quality if it's kept outside. Sunlight bounces or reflects from different objects. Just because it's not directly in the sun, sunlight can still reach the olive oil. because it can reflect from your wall or your table or your floors. So light can get to food even if it's not directly under the sunlight. All right. How about this next food? Let's say I have some potatoes and I kept it on the countertop as well. So is this food stored properly? Yes or no? And if no, where would you store it instead? I see someone raise their hand. Oh, wait, no, that's still Diane.
Like, how do I get rid of it?
I think the way to get rid of it, Diane, is, oh, there you go. You figured it out.
I figured out how to talk too.
Oh yeah, I hear you much more clearly. Yeah, did you have thoughts on the potatoes, Diane?
Yolanda does.
Yeah, let her answer.
Okay, there's no right or wrong. Well, actually there are some right or wrong answers for this one, but we're not grading you. It's okay to be wrong. We learn from, these are teachable moments, right? We learn from our mistakes. So Yolanda says in cabinet, dry place, no dark space. All right, very good. So you guys got the right idea. Keeping your potatoes out in sunlight also can affect the quality, usually causes potatoes to sprout or spoil faster. So definitely not a good idea to keep your potatoes out on your countertop where it could be exposed to sunlight or heat. All right, very good. How about my bread? I stored it on the top of my refrigerator. Is this a good place to store my bread? Yes or no? And if no, where should you store it? My fresh loaf of bread on top of my refrigerator. Is that okay? What do you think? Anyone have any thoughts? Anyone do this with other foods? Like I see this with oatmeal, maybe cereals. Diane says it's probably okay if you eat it quickly. Yes, that's a good point, Diane. Bread doesn't last very long in my home. I love bread. All right, Yolanda says if older, put in a refrigerator for longer keeping. That is very true, Yolanda. Putting foods in the refrigerator most likely help them store for longer. But for bread and for any other food, placing it and storing it on top of the refrigerator actually can cause the food to go bad quickly or more quickly. And the reason is because it's pretty warm on top of your fridge. Does anyone ever, if you're cleaning or touch the top of your refrigerator, it's actually quite warm. So heat is, I like to call it, well, I don't want to call it an enemy, but it's something you should avoid for proper food storage because normally it's not a good idea to place food where it's warm. So I would actually not store your bread or any other food on top of the refrigerator for that reason. All right. How about my stick of butter? Put it on my kitchen table. It's just out in the open, after breakfast, I just leave it on the refrigerator. Is this okay? Refrigerator. Very good, Yolanda. So yes, this is okay if you're using it, but I would store it back in the refrigerator as soon as you're done using it. How about my chicken? Raw chicken.
Oh.
That's exactly my reaction when I visit my parents, Diane. My parents love to thaw their chicken. Like they like to buy a lot of chicken when it's on sale. And they like to thaw it out on the countertop. And it drives me bananas because I think we all know raw chicken does not belong on the counter. It goes in the refrigerator, right? Along with the butter. So here are, quote unquote, the answers. Of course, it could be stored a little differently than how your home or your kitchen is designed, but butter, and things like raw chicken definitely belong in the refrigerator. And I would store things like potatoes, olive oil, and my bread in a dark, cool place. That's normally the best place for most foods, dark, cool place, other than, animal products. Those normally belong in the refrigerator. Yes, very good, Yolanda. Use quickly or put in refrigerator or freezer. Oh yeah, you can definitely freeze butter. All right, so I think most of us knows what goes in the refrigerator, so I'm going to go over this quickly. But as I mentioned, any animal products, so that includes chicken, dairy, meats, anything like that. Any leftover cooked foods you might have from the night before, anything that's been opened, right? Condiments, opened beverages, and most fruits and vegetables do store best in the refrigerator. So I like storing my apples in the refrigerator. They also taste better when it's a bit cold to me. Non-starchy vegetables, any produce that's been cut. So if you have like cut watermelon, that stores best in the refrigerator. But if it's, uncut and it's a whole watermelon, you don't necessarily have to put that in the refrigerator. I do want to point out some produce do require a bit of tender loving care. So things that are pretty delicate, like leafy greens, asparagus, and fresh herbs. If you were at Kevin's last workshop, he talked a little bit about this. So storing your herbs and asparagus in a jar of about an inch of water tends to help it store or last longer. And I also like to put a little zip top bag over it to protect the delicate leaves of fresh herbs, things like cilantro or green onions. They tend to wilt if you don't cover it. So make sure you cover it and change the water every so often. Depending if it's kind of getting murky, I would probably change it. Leafy greens, I like to store them in a paper bag as opposed to plastic bags. Plastic bags tend to collect a lot of moisture, and that can also cause foods to spoil. So those are a little bit of, special things I would do to store delicate produce. Same idea with mushrooms. Mushrooms have a lot of moisture. If you ever cooked mushrooms, you already know they shrink really quickly, right? And it's because it has a lot of moisture, lots of water. So best to also store mushrooms in a paper bag as opposed to plastic to avoid early spoilage. All right, anyone have any questions so far? I know this is a lot of information. Hopefully you do some of this or you learn something new. All right, next category is the countertop or cabinet. So things that we should keep in an airtight container. So that includes oils, any jarred food, canned food, dry beans, grains, cereals, things like that. We want to also keep this in not only in a dark, cool place, but also in an airtight container. Some of these foods, for example, grains, they have a bit of natural oils if it's a whole grain, for example, brown rice. So you want to definitely keep these foods in an airtight container. Exposing these foods to air can also cause them to spoil. All right, last category is also the countertop and cabinet, but these are foods that you can store kind of loosely. You don't have to store your potatoes in an airtight container, of course. So that includes things like garlic and onions, hard squashes like pumpkin, it's almost pumpkin season, bananas, any citrus fruit like tomatoes, lemons and oranges. Tomatoes is not a citrus fruit, but tomatoes can also go in this category as well as avocados. But I do like to store ripe tomatoes and ripe avocados in the refrigerator to help them last a bit longer. For potatoes and yams, a quick tip about storing these, I would do your best to store these away from onions. And the reason is because potatoes and yams are very sensitive to what we call ethylene gas. And this is a natural gas. It's perfectly harmless, and it just helps produce ripen naturally, but potatoes are really sensitive to those, and onions release a lot of this gas. So store those away from each other as best you can. All right, anyone have any questions? All righty, so let's go a little closer, or take a closer look in my refrigerator. And I think all of us know what goes in the refrigerator, but what part of the refrigerator becomes a bit tricky, right? So most refrigerators have a top shelf, middle shelf, a bottom shelf, crisper drawers, and of course a door. So let's say I have a couple of foods that I need to store away, and please let me know where you would typically store it in your refrigerator. And we're not talking about the freezer. You can store most of these foods in the freezer, of course, but we're just talking about the refrigerator. So let's say I have cut cantaloupe. Where would you store your cut cantaloupe? Oh, we have a question from Valerie. Is it a good idea or not to wrap some items like onions in plastic? Ooh, good question. I don't believe you have to store or wrap produce in plastic. I think this can help with some produce. So one that comes to mind for me is bananas. So when you buy a bunch of bananas, some stores actually do this already. So normally the stem sometimes is wrapped in plastic, and I wouldn't remove that because that actually helps the bananas ripen a little less quickly. So I would keep that, and if it doesn't come with plastic, you can try that on your own. But that's the only reason I would think you would want to wrap your produce in plastic. I don't think you need to. I don't think most produce need to be wrapped in plastic, unless it's cut and you put in your refrigerator. But fruits and vegetables are living things, so they need to breathe a little bit. So you don't have to wrap your produce in plastic. At least that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I can't think of a single reason right now, but I can dig a little bit deeper into that, Valerie, and maybe I'll get back to you in the next workshop, or if I have your email, I could follow up, or I will share my email and you can follow up with me. All right, Yolanda says crisper drawer for Melinda. Very good. Okay, crisper drawer. How about a carton of eggs? Where would you store your carton of eggs? Any ideas? Middle shelf, question mark? Okay, very good. Let's see. Tina says top shelf. All right, very nice. Did you say top shelf too, Diane?
No, I disagree with that one.
Oh,
I
you
think
disagree.
middle or bottom shelf.
Middle or bottom shelf. Okay, very good. It's okay to disagree. You don't have to agree with each other. We are open for debates here. All right, celery. I have a stock of celery. Where do you normally store this in your refrigerator? Crisper drawer, Yolanda says. All right, anyone else agree or disagree? Crisper, Diane says. All right, very good. Let's see, milk, whole milk, of a gallon of milk. Top shelf, Yolanda says. Oh, Diane as well. All right, last item. We have some, oh, Tina says chicken, or sorry, Tina said door, it's not chicken. Sorry, I saw the picture of chicken and I said chicken. Yolanda said bottom shelf for the chicken, and I believe Tina meant door for the milk. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Tina. I don't know if chicken can fit in the door. I mean, maybe if it's a small chicken. All right, let's reveal the answers. So I would store the cut cantaloupe on the top shelf. It could also, I would also accept middle shelf. For the milk, I would also store this in the middle shelf. For the carton of eggs, on the bottom shelf or one of the lower shelves. For the chicken, definitely bottom shelf. And for the celery, crisper drawer. I think this is the most agreed item here. And of course, there's many different places we can store these foods, but I think these are the most proper places to put them for food safety and also to reduce food waste. So for the top and middle shelves, these are relatively cold. And the reason, I want to step back a little bit. And the reason we are storing foods in different places has to do with temperature distribution. So the temperature of your refrigerator should be 40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. But it's actually very different depending on what part of the refrigerator we're talking about. So the top and middle shelves are moderately cold, and it's best to place foods that are ready to eat. So things like cut cantaloupe, yogurt, any fresh herbs, things like milk. I know it could be a little tough to fit in a gallon of milk. So, do your best to fit it in there. And any foods that are not raw, so things like meat and eggs are a good place to put or store on the top and middle shelf. So for the bottom shelf, that's the best place for raw eggs, meat, and fish for two reasons. One is for food safety, and this is to avoid cross-contamination. So does anyone know what cross-contamination is? Oh, Gary says he's moving his eggs now. Very good. Very actionable item. So does anyone know what cross-contamination refers to? What does cross-contamination mean? Cross-contamination kind of sounds like what the word implies. So cross-contamination happens when we cross bacteria from one food to the other. So a good example of this is raw chicken. Raw chicken has tons of bacteria, and if you are preparing your raw chicken on a cutting board, let's say you chop it up into pieces, and then use that same cutting board to cut your, cantaloupe that you're about to eat. That'll definitely make you sick. So that is something we want to avoid. We don't want to get sick, right? So one, for food safety reasons, and two, for most refrigerator models, it's actually the coldest place in your refrigerator. Warm air rises, so the bottom shelf way in the back is typically the coldest place in your refrigerator. Some refrigerator models who have their freezer on the top shelf or on the top of the refrigerator, actually the top shelf may be colder. So it depends on your model, but I think the safety reason kind of outweighs the temperature reason. So I like to store my raw foods all on the bottom shelf. The story I like to tell with this is I had a roommate who was thawing out some chicken on the top shelf, and something knocked it over, and she didn't seal it very well, and blood got everywhere. So we had to waste a lot of food that day. It was a sad day. So try to avoid that. So placing your raw foods, things that need to be cooked, bottom shelf is always the best place, in my opinion. And seal it well too. Put it on a tray or some sort of bowl to catch all the juices that might spill over. And the crisper drawer, I think most of you mentioned, is the best place for produce. So keeping them clean could also, could prevent contamination or spoilage too.
Elizabeth has a question regarding produce.
Oh, thanks, Angela. Is there advantage of changing from the plastic bag? We brought vegetables back from market to paper bag. Yes, Elizabeth, this is something I like to do because I know most of our produce do come in plastic bag, and it, really annoys me, but it's out of our control. Yes, there is an advantage because, as I mentioned, plastic bag tends to collect a lot of moisture, and moisture is also one reason that food spoils faster. So we want to avoid that and store it in a paper bag. Unless you're about to eat it, within a couple of days, and I think it's, safe to keep it in the plastic bag. So that's also something to keep in mind. depending on, how soon you're going to eat it. And if that's not soon, then I would transfer it to a paper bag. All right, great question, Elizabeth. Thank you. And the last part is the door. So the door is actually the warmest part of a refrigerator. If you think about how many times you open the refrigerator, plus your partner or roommates or, kids, it's a lot. We open the refrigerator door at least more than once a day. And that causes the temperature of the refrigerator to fluctuate. So it's not a great place to put things like eggs and butter and milk. I know they store really nicely there, but can actually cause your food to spoil faster. So it's best for things like condiments, like ketchup and mustard, and water, things like that aren't perishable. All right. Hopefully this inspires you to kind of reorganize your fridge, but this is how professional kitchens store their food, because they have to keep their food fresh and safe for us to eat. So you can learn a little bit from pro tips. All right, anyone have any other questions before we go to the next activity?
I guess I do.
Oh, yes, Diane.
Okay, my refrigerator has like crisper drawers, and each drawer asks you if you want to do on vegetable or fruit. What is it? Is one colder than the other? It's just a matter of maybe an inch of opening.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you brought that up. It gets a little trickier for some people, and so if you have true crisper drawers in your refrigerator, there's usually a humidity setting, right? You can set one high or you can set one low. And if you don't have that, you can do what Diane is mentioning, and you can kind of allow a little bit of more air in one to change the humidity that way. So if you do have two drawers, it is best to separate your fruits and vegetables if possible. Fruits, I always get a little confused. So let me see if I got this straight. So the drawer you have your fruits in, that does best in low humidity. So how I remember this is normally when you go to the grocery store, right? Your fruits are in the non-refrigerated section, right? It's kind of out in the open. It's in a big bin. So it's in a low humidity setting compared to vegetables, right? They're normally in the refrigerated section, and they kind of spray it with water, kind of keep it moist and fresh. So that is a high humidity setting. So put your vegetables in a high humidity setting, and then your fruits in a low humidity setting. So that is the strategy I've learned. But sometimes I cheat. Sometimes I don't have enough room in my vegetable bin. So sometimes I put my vegetables in my fruit bin. So do the best you can, right? Sometimes things don't fit perfectly, and you'll have to kind of, break a little, few of the rules, and that's okay. We're not perfect, doing the best we can. But that is the proper way to store your produce if you do have those two crisper drawers. Does that make sense, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. All right, we're actually gonna skip this food safety quiz because I just realized we're running low on time, and I want to give Angela enough time for her food demonstration. So I'm going to pass the mic to Angela now. And if we can spotlight her video, Tina or Bruce, that would be wonderful.
I will do that.
Thank you, Tina. Oh, Gary said, he has a question. I bought butter from Costco, which is too much. Oh, I hear you. I hear you, Gary. Costco does, they sell things in bulk. So I'm with you. But does it last pretty much forever, despite the Best By date? I wouldn't stretch it that far to, forever, Gary. Foods do spoil. But butter can last very long if you store it in the freezer, I believe up to 1 year. But let me double check on that. Oh, I should have thought of that. Oh, Angela said, sorry, Angela, I forgot. Or I didn't see your comment there, but yes, you can definitely place things in the freezer. You can freeze almost any food. And this is great if you shop at Costco because they give more, way more than you need. All right, take it away, Angela.
Okay, is it okay if I just share my screen really quickly? I'm going to show you what my produce looked like yesterday. It's a little bit of you gotta kind of plan a little bit, but it's actually easier than you think. Is it okay for me to share my screen, Sharonda?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Just gonna show you really quick. Can you see that? Those are my bananas and my avocado, and they're nice and freckly.
Ooh.
And in my house, nobody seems to like them at that point.
They're a little too ripe.
Okay, so now if you can spotlight this cutting board that I have, that would be helpful. So what we're doing today is a chocolate banana ice cream, but it's dairy free.
Ooh.
So let me go grab, first I've got like some unsweetened cocoa, cinnamon. Can you see is it spotlighted correctly? I can't really look at the screen right now.
Are we going to be getting the recipe?
Vanilla. I'm in the process of developing it because I literally just started it yesterday, but we will upload it to Eat Fresh and then Anna can email it to all the participants.
Yes.
Okay, let me go grab, and I also have a little bit of like the end of the peanut butter here. It's not enough for a sandwich, but it will be going into this delicious ice cream. I'll be right back. Let me get it from the freezer.
All right, lovely. Tina, so Angela actually has two cameras. Maybe it makes sense to spotlight her cutting board. Are you able to
Give
see
me
her
one
cutting
second.
board?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Are you able to spotlight two videos at the same time or just one?
Just
Let me
one.
try it.
I think just
Let me
one,
try it.
right?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Ooh, there we go.
We're good?
Perfect. Mhm.
Okay, so here's some bananas, and I took 2 bananas and the rest of my avocado, and I cut them up into 1-inch pieces. Here, I hope you can see. Just let me know if you can't see something. What I did is I stored it in a Ziploc bag, and a lot of times you might want to, if you store things, you want to put the date on it, right? So that we can figure out first in, first out. That's always a good little pro tip. So what I did was, I have parchment paper laying around. It's very useful. And I know that when we freeze things, they tend to end up in a giant block. So what I did was, let's see here, I rolled it up because I don't really have that much room in my refrigerator. The other thing you can do, a baking tray or like just a flat glass container if you're using like 1 banana. Sometimes you're just living by yourself and you got like 1 banana left, but you don't want it to go to waste. Okay, so I'm unrolling this. Can you see my chunky bananas?
We can.
Yeah. So I put
Is that parchment paper you use,
this
Angela?
parchment paper
Okay.
lid. I don't, my freezer is highly used, so I didn't have like a long stretch of real estate to just lay it out. So I just, kind of put something in between so that it wouldn't end up being a giant block like that. But I somewhat successful. Here we go.
It's fine. It's gonna be all blended up.
Yeah.
Oh, you chopped up the avocado
I
too.
did. So if you saw the picture earlier, that was half an avocado that I left in the fridge, and I just didn't get to it yet, but it started turning brown. So I cut off the brown pieces. And if, sometimes you'll have the avocado and like the roots started growing or it's a little bit brown, but it's still okay. The reason why I used cocoa powder in this recipe is that if there's an off color, that it'd still be okay because, brown covers everything. There we go.
Yeah, no, this is really great because avocados spoil just so much more quickly than other fruits, and they freeze really well. Of course, they have a different texture when you freeze them, but this is a great frozen treat. I know it's officially fall today, but I think it's warm enough to enjoy things like these.
Yesterday was very warm. Okay, so now I have small chunks that I could either use in a food processor or a blender. And I don't actually have a food processor. I couldn't find it, but I'm going to use a blender. Let's move this. over here. Can we see the blender?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
Let's tighten this up a little bit here. This little arm.
I feel like I'm going in the blender now.
This is the little window to the blender. Okay, so I'm just gonna put all the fruits in here. Make sure you have a spatula. If you're using a blender, make sure it's a high-powered blender because I know some blenders aren't powerful enough, and you may end up kind of wrecking the motor with these hard pieces of fruit. But we've got that in. I'm going to add a little bit of coconut milk, just a touch, to kind of liquefy. I have a 1/4 cup, but I'm going to kind of play it by ear. And I don't know if this is too loud. I will put myself on mute. Just let me know. Can you see it? It's kind of a little bit blending and a little bit chunky. I'm going to put a little bit more coconut milk in there because I get a little anxious too about trusting my blender. But food processors, I've heard, will actually work better in this scenario, but both can work. Let's see. Then we're gonna have to scrape it down every once in a while, as you can see. Scrape it down, but it is getting a little bit creamier. Once it gets a little bit creamier, I'm gonna throw in the vanilla extract, the unsweetened cocoa powder, and a little bit of cinnamon.
Better than watching the Food Network.
That's a huge compliment, Bruce.
I mean, this is great. I mean, like, all right.
The Food Network is just highly, very showy. They have everything cooked already. Like, we're gonna bake this in the oven, and actually, it's already baked, and they're taking it out of the oven. This is real raw stuff,
Real
people.
stuff.
You're hearing.
I really had to put you on mute because it is really loud over here. But can you see it's getting a little bit creamier?
Yeah.
It's going for like a soft serve consistency. At this point, I'm gonna put some vanilla extract in here. Really, you don't have to get this fancy. You could just have the frozen banana, put it in your blender or food processor, and then just eat it up. Yeah, it just depends on how like fancy or different flavors. I'm gonna put a little bit of cinnamon, maybe.
Oh, Jane, you have your hand up?
There.
Did you have a
Yeah.
question?
Can I ask a couple food safety questions while she's doing that?
Sure, yeah.
I'm interested in knowing the safety of two things.
Okay.
That's added to products like Pam and the starch or whatever they add to prepackaged shredded cheese to keep it from clumping. Is there anything to be concerned about either of those two?
Oh, good question. So I couldn't quite hear the first one. Could you repeat that, Jan? Or Jane, sorry.
The propellant that's added to products like Pam.
Okay. The propellant added to Pam. Let's see. Oh, it's literally called propellant. Huh. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of vegetable oil sprays, but in our country, ingredients added to food do have to be checked for safety. Food products can't just add whatever they want. in food products, with the exception of some supplement companies. They can actually get away with that. But with food, the Food and Drug Administration actually have to check for safety for ingredients. So generally they are safe. And I haven't heard, or I'm not aware of any dangerous or harmful side effects of the propellant. I mean, if you think about the way we use things like Pam, it's only like a small spray, right? I think when it becomes harmful is if we had a high dose of this propellant, maybe that can cause issues. And that can apply to any food, right? It really just depends on the dose, kind of like medicine, right? We need to take a small, moderate, a dose of certain things. So I wouldn't be too worried about propellant. I can definitely do a little bit more research of the propellant. So that is something I'm actually not too sure about. But of propellant that causes something harmful for our health.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then the other part of your question was the ingredients added to shredded cheese, right?
Yes.
I think that's sometimes is it cellulose? I want to say it's
potato starch.
Potato starch. Oh yeah, that's definitely fine. Again, ingredients added to foods like shredded cheese also have to be checked for safety. And I don't think you have to be worried about potato starch. That's used in cooking sometimes. So that there's nothing, I don't think that's dangerous about things like potato starch that is added to the shredded cheese. All right, very good. Anyone else? Oh, Yolanda says, will we be getting the recipe for Angela's ice cream? Yes, we're developing the recipe right now. So you're getting a sneak peek of what it looks like right now. But once it's published on our eatfresh.org, it will be shared, Yolanda. So thank you for that question.
Are we?
Ooh, it looks like chocolate ice cream.
All right, we're gonna move over here. I think, let's see. Oh, I'm gonna wipe off this chocolate mess. Can everyone see that? Eating is a little bit.
Ooh,
That's how
looks
it's
like chocolate mousse.
A little bit like a chocolate mousse. It's super cold. It's like, there's condensation on the outside of my blender. And then, so there's two options now. You can, if you're impatient like me, you can definitely just, have a nice little, you can have it like that. And then I'm gonna, where are we at? I got like unsweetened coconut shreds, and we can just definitely enjoy it like that. The other option is that if you have kind of like a flat container, you can go in here. Let's see if I can get a different spatula. The spatula is, there we go. Yes. And again, it doesn't even have to be this. You can add any flavors you want, or you just do the frozen banana and a little bit of liquid to kind of get it going. I love coconut. I love peanut butter. I love chocolate. I love avocado. This is like everything. And I was able to save all those last ends and bits of the avocado, of the overripe banana, of the end of the peanut butter jar. So here we can have it. We'll just lay it out flat like this. And then you can put it back into the freezer for about 30 minutes and it'll be harder, and then you can scoop it. But I wouldn't recommend any more than 30 minutes if you want to be able to scoop it still, or you might have to just kind of defrost it. But there's no dairy in here, no added sugars. I did put a pinch of salt. I know the blender was pretty loud, but I did put a pinch of salt because I like that with my chocolate. And I wish I could really share this with you, But that's the end of the cooking demo.
Everyone go to Angela's house for a little sample.
Field trip to my house.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Angela. I'm going to share my slides again for the last 2 minutes for our closing remarks. Oh, where did it go? All right. Oh, and Jane, I followed up with your propellant question. So I did double check and it has been approved as a safe ingredient. It's actually the toxicity level is pretty low. So I wouldn't be worried about your propellant because like I mentioned, you're only using small amounts. Okay. All right, give me 1 second here. Sorry, things got a little jumbled. But thank you, Angela. That looks super tasty. How does it taste, by the way? Are you tasting it?
No, not yet. I can do it right now. We'll do a live taste test.
Yes, let us know.
Oh. It's so creamy. It's definitely like a frozen mousse
Yum.
at this point. But I know that if I'm going to go freeze the other batch for about 30
Very
minutes and then
nice.
scoop it. Yeah, it's like really high fiber. So that's where it'll keep its shape.
All right, wonderful. We'll have to give it a try. I'm super lazy. I hate doing dishes. So when I have frozen bananas, I just freeze them whole and then I just eat it that way.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, like you can stick a popsicle stick on it and just like
Totally.
enjoy it as like a frozen banana treat. They they sell that in ice cream parlors.
Mhm.
They overprice it. It only costs like a few, pennies. Well, not pennies, but costs way less than they're charging you. But I'm gonna skip over to talk about the vouchers. It is noon, so if you have to hop off, you're welcome to do so. I'll talk about this really quickly. So if you're a San Mateo County resident, so that includes Redwood City or South San Francisco or wherever you are, you earn $6 Veg or X vouchers. And these will be mailed after the last workshop. So the last workshop will be next month after the last after the next community day. And these are redeemable at different farmers markets in San Mateo County, but also Bay Area counties. So they don't expire, so you can use them whenever you want. And they're good for fruits and vegetables only. So you can't use them to buy like farm fresh eggs or seafood, unfortunately. But there's still a really great perk of coming to these workshops. And to earn these vouchers, we'll send out a survey after the last workshop. And it'll ask for your mailing information and we'll mail them after the last workshop. All right, and that's it. Sorry to go a little over time, but thank you, Tina. Thank you, Bruce, and everyone for attending today. Hopefully you learned something new, inspired to try Angela's ice cream or reorganize your fridge, or what else did we talk about? Or freeze your butter. Oh, Gary, I also checked, or I think that was Gary who asked about butter. You can freeze your butter and it's good for up to 1 year. Isn't that great? Especially if you shop at Costco. I
Wow.
freeze almost everything if I shop at Costco.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Angela.
Tina.
Thank you,
Thank
Trying
you,
that
Bruce.
milkshake tonight.
Amazing.
I'm going for it. The milkshake tonight.
All right.
All right, great. We'll
Thank
Take care,
check-
you so much.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
you.
Enjoy